Greetings. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host, and this is Community Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an outstanding program today, an exemplary person, John H. Woods, Master Chief Petty Officer SS, retired United States Navy veteran who has made his home in North Chicago, Illinois. Greetings, Mr. Woods.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're very happy that you've taken time from literally from your business schedule. I understand you just got back from vacation in Florida, and we want to let our listening audience know that you are a person that Lake County should know. And I consider this a signature program, one that will go down as in history as one of the greatest programs on Community Forum. First of all, I'd like for you to tell our listening audience that I normally always do a little bit about your personal and professional background.
Fine. Yes, I was born in Alabama, a little small town. At about the age of 6, we moved to Ohio, a place called Lima, L-I-M-A.
Yeah.
They often refer to it as Lost in Middle America, jokingly. But I grew up there, went to high school there, married my high school sweetheart, Sarah. Matter of fact, we just got back Sunday from Florida. We celebrated our 57th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations. You were contemporaries then.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Returned, and we had a wonderful time down there. The weather didn't dampen our spirits, however, it was raining the whole time. In high school, I was the only black male in my class.
Wow. Upon
graduating from high school, I went immediately into the Navy and served in the Navy 21 years, 21 years in service, and retired as a Master Chief Petty Officer, United States Navy and submarines. I served 2 years on aircraft carriers on 2 different aircraft carriers, one being about 888 feet, the other being over 1,000 feet, and about 7 stories tall.
It's a little city.
It is a floating city, and it has everything, stores except barbershops and et cetera. On board, it has about 60 plus airplanes, so you can imagine the size of this thing. On board, we put it out of commission, the first one out of commission in Philadelphia. I was transferred then to the Saratoga in Florida, Jacksonville, Mayport, Florida. After being on there for a couple of years, though, I decided that I wanted to go into submarines because most of my friends were going into submarines, and I thought it was a pretty exciting thing to do. I went home and talked it with my wife, and I think she was on the fence about it. You know, she didn't know a lot about it. I didn't know a lot about it. I was just excited about going
down
into submarines. Yes, and so yes, I signed up, went in submarines, served about 19 years in submarine service. As I said, I made Master Chief Petty Officer, which is it is the top 1% of the enlisted in the Navy.
The whole Navy?
The whole Navy, top 1%. And I did that surprisingly for the 16 and a half years in the Navy, I took the test and passed it the first time, and the first time I was promoted some months later. And during my naval career, though, I went to boot camp in San Diego, California, came back here to Great Lakes, and went to engineering school. Now, engineering school was like a 8-12-week school at that time. I graduated, and that's when I went on to the carriers. But after leaving here and Quonset Point, Rhode Island, and Jacksonville, Florida, I went to submarine school, and I need to talk a little about the submarine school, the qualification, because that was, to me, one of my highlights. You had to first take an academic test. You had to take a psychological test to see if you were psychologically sound. They didn't want you cracking up down there.
Okay.
You had to take an escape. They have an escape tower full of water, which is 100 feet in height. Mm-hmm. They would take you down to the 50-foot level, and you had to escape. They were pressurized, and you had to escape from that 50-foot level. Wow. It was, boy, there was some scary guys there, and the problem was, I didn't have any problems, but the problem was equalizing with the pressure. Mm-hmm. A lot of guys failed because they could not, they had colds, eardrum would burst under the pressure, mm-hmm. and they just couldn't qualify. Mm-hmm. But anyway, my job on board submarines, I maintain air conditioning, refrigeration, all of the air system and pneumatic systems on board, watertight hatches, sanitary systems, air compressor, HP and LP compressors, hydraulics for the periscopes. I also maintain the periscopes, hydraulic for the torpedo tubes. We had a joke. One guy in charge of the forward torpedo room was a person by the name of Swackhammer, and we used to call him Mother Hen because he was so fussy about his torpedo room. He wanted spick and span. Mm-hmm. And me being responsible for hydraulic systems, sometime if you've got hydraulic system, they're going to leak. Mm-hmm. You're going to have a hydraulic drip at one point in time. Mm-hmm. Anytime that we would get a drip, this guy would be complaining, and I would always say to him, hey, I'm responsible for the hydraulic system. I'm not, once it gets out of the system, it's yours. Mm-hmm. And then we would always have that going back and forth, that fight. It's not mine once it gets out of the system. Anyway, once I retired from the Navy, I went to work for Procter & Gamble down in Chicago. One person that was on staff with me, because I served 2 terms at the school here in Great Lakes. The first time I came here, I was an instructor. The second time I came back, I was the branch head for the engineering school over on the base. Well, anyway, before I retired from the Navy, this person was also about getting ready to retire. So he asked me, he had an interview down at Procter & Gamble in Chicago. He says, would you write down with me? Okay, I'll write with you. Mm-hmm. So I went down with him. He had the interview. They took him off to the various places in the plant. And while sitting there, the master mechanic, or the third person in charge of Procter & Gamble at that site, asked me what I did in the Navy. And so we talked for a while, and he then said to me, would you mind taking a test while you're here? And me, you don't want to burn your bridges, so I said, fine, I'll take the test. He then said, the coffee pot is here, the restroom is here, and I'm saying to myself, how long is this test going to be? Anyway, it's a quite involved test. Sometime later, he came back and picked up the papers, and I assumed that he went to personnel office with the papers and evaluated what I had done. Mm-hmm. He came back and he started talking about everything but the test, and finally he said to me, would you mind coming back for a day visit? I said, fine, but I really didn't want to work in Chicago. Okay. And the amazing thing about this whole thing is they didn't invite the other guy who came down there originally for the job. They didn't even invite him back. He went back to Minnesota somewhere. I came back to the day visit. I was hired as a project and technical manager. Mm-hmm. Project and technical manager, I started off in foods, Crisco oil and all that type of area. I started off in that area, and I was responsible for the all the mechanical stuff that dealt with the making of that oils. Mm-hmm. That was a great job. I wound up going through various parts of the company. I was in synthetics where we make Tide Oxidol soaps, and we make also hard soaps. We were making Lava at one time, Zest, and those type things. After I retired from the military, I retired from Procter & Gamble. I started a franchise business, or got involved in a franchise business called All Tune and Lube. It was certain like Mako, or not Mako, like the Quick Lube Pros and those type things. But we went beyond that because we did brake inspections and mufflers and that kind of stuff. Did that for a while, and at the same time, I had a maintenance consulting business. And I'm flying like 2 days a week. Really enjoyed that. And one of the things that I did was Procter & Gamble had a $26 million modernization project going on in Cincinnati, and they contacted me to design and implement a preventative maintenance system for that project. It was for the Camay and Zest project, okay? And I alone designed, trained, and implemented that system for the $26 million program.
Wow.
Yes.
You know, you've had some challenging experiences, you know, as a youngster, and you had some even more challenging experiences within the Navy. But let's go back to in the South. You mentioned you were encouraged to join the Navy by the coach.
My coach.
Tell us about your down south experiences. Then we'll get into the up south experiences, and then we get some more of your Navy experiences.
Okay. Well, down south, as a kid, you know, I spent my younger years there. Didn't have many great experiences in the South, you know, like most other kids. I grew up in poverty and work doing all those things we do in the country, and watching my grandfather plow and all that type stuff, and doing all those things. But then we came up north after, we jokingly say after my father sold a mule.
Okay.
We came up north, and we lived in a trailer camp. And by the way, my wife also lived in a trailer camp. So I've known my wife since 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
We've been around each other forever. So, but experiences, I experienced many things that we all experience. I remember one time when I was working, selling ice cream on one of those little pedal carts, selling ice cream, and there was a car, ironically, there from Florida, and it had 2 men and 2 ladies in this car. And this guy, for some reason, and I was just a kid, he threw this pop out on me, and he looked at me, and I looked, you know, I looked around for anyone, adult that I might have known to tell them about this, but thank God, I guess it was good I didn't see anybody, because we might have caused a big problem there. But those are the kind of things that went on to all blacks. It happened to all blacks.
Well, you mentioned that in the area, Lou Downs and Phyllis Diller, I guess they were.
Hugh Downs, yeah.
They were in your area too, right?
Yeah, Hugh Downs and Phyllis Diller were both from Lima.
Okay.
Yeah, they were both from Lima, Ohio, and that's one of the things that we always, people say, where is it? That's our mark. We say, well, Hugh Downs, Phyllis Diller, they're both from Lima, Ohio. Yeah.
Now, you had some, were you in Birmingham, Alabama? Were you?
Yes.
Tell us about that, because we have some outstanding people. Condoleezza Rice, she was born in Birmingham.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the wife and I, and our youngest daughter got honorary doctorate degrees there in Birmingham at a college there that we hadn't heard of, but they found us. And we made several trips down to Birmingham. And while we were down there, we visited the Civil Rights Museum.
Okay.
You want to tell us about it?
Yes, yes. Matter of fact, I have an aunt. She's my sole surviving aunt. She's living in Birmingham.
Okay.
My father was killed in the war, and that's his surviving sister, only one. He was. But anyway, the wife and I, in 2014, we went to Birmingham, and we visited the Civil Rights Museum. Man, it takes you back a ways. You know, it lets you know what was actually going on, and they have some artifacts from that time, the school rooms, black versus white, and there were Negroes then, versus whites or colored.
Okay.
And you look at the difference. There was a dramatic difference between the classrooms. They had all of the colored signs, the bus that they, you know, it just, all of those things that happen in the South, they have those artifacts.
So everyone should really, if they ever go south for vacation or whatever, should visit the Civil Rights Museum in Birmingham, Alabama.
Everyone should go to the museum. They should make it a point if they want to know what actually took place in history. And
right across the street was that the 16th Street Baptist Church, where the bombing took place, where 4 young Negro girls were killed? Were killed right across the street, and they still have it. That church looks like it's new to me. It doesn't look bad. It's a big, humongous church, but it is so impressive. I just feel that everyone should make that run. Matter of fact, when I came back home from that museum, I said, you know, that depicts what was going on then, but we need something that depicts what's happening now. Okay. And with that, I sat down and I designed a logo, and I call it the racetrack. And it depicts what is actually going on today, because even though we are being told that everything is okay in civil rights, we're treating everybody fairly, we're playing with a level playing field, the starting line and the finish lines are all the same, that is not true. Somebody is being cheated in this race. Maybe we can show that racetrack that you designed on the screen. It's very interesting. Now here you may go into details about it there. Okay, on the racetrack here, you can't clearly see, but there are, all cultures are represented there. We have the black, brown, yellow, and white. Okay. Being represented in this race. You have a starting line and a finish line being even. And what we're being told in this civil rights situation, we're being told that all things are even. Just look at that. Civil rights says starting line, finish line. Okay. They're all equal. Now, how is that unequal now that when you design? Now, first glance, you might say, yeah, well, there is no argument there. Okay. But if you look at the black, you look at the brown, look at the yellow, and you look at the white, somebody in this race has a further distance to the finish line. If you look at the blacks, they're on the outer edge, right? And they clearly have a longer distance to run to get to the finish line. Okay. And that, you know, we assume when people say it's all fair and even playing field, the starting line, finish line, you have to take a closer look. A closer look clearly reveals or dictates that we are running a longer race to get to the finish line. And I put in the center of this racetrack a question mark. And this question mark simply asks the question, what's wrong with this race and how can it be corrected? Okay. Now, I made then from this logo, it is a registered, copyrighted trademark, okay? I went through the patent office, got it approved, and from that I made some lapel pins. I have one on here, and it's representation of that logo.
I've been selling those around town. I sell them. I sold some in Florida when I was down there.
Oh, okay.
And it's not moving the way I want because I can't seem to get the word out. So.
Well, marketing is always a problem in any
Yes.
entrepreneurial experience, you know.
Yes.
But this is very interesting. Now, when you say what's wrong with the race and how can it be corrected, now it's a little deeper. You go a little deeper because we look at housing.
Yes.
The area of housing where we have a housing area in the city of North Chicago where the whole community was destroyed. That's the
Okay.
Marion Jones
Yes, Marion
complex,
Jones,
right?
yes.
The whole development.
Sure.
125 unit development. And then in educational, we have we even have a discrimination in education. We got prep schools now. We got, look at the schools in North Chicago, I mean the city of Chicago, where 50 schools were closed, and they were primarily in African American areas. In the voting, they cutting down on the places in certain areas in the South where you can't make it difficult for you to
Yes.
register to vote.
They make it, yeah.
Employment, last hired and first fired, you know.
Last hired, first
So,
fired.
so these are the type of things that blacks incurred when they have to go take the long way around in the race. And then the whites, of course, are right in the center, where the distance is very short around. You got the yellow or the brown race next, and
Minorities.
the minorities,
Yes.
all minorities, and then of course the blacks are the longest. Now it's amazing because actually the Africans were the first people in this country because they are located all over the world.
Yes.
And next were the Indians here in this country, and then the whites were the last group to come in. Now we have immigrants that really have the more advantage than the blacks, and they've been here longer.
Which is what is depicted on that. You see the blacks outside, and then you see the brown,
Okay.
which are a lot of the immigrants are brown and yellow, and they have an advantage over the guys who have been here. And really, the country was built on the backs of many of the blacks, the
Okay.
slaves, etc.
Okay.
They did a lot of the hard work to get this country to.
At no pay.
No pay.
The slave
It was free labor, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, here's an example of, we talk about the struggles, and I remember when I came in the Navy in boot camp, there was one other black person in boot camp with me. Now, the structure was, we had a commander, a chief, he was in the regular Navy, he was a chief. He was referred to as a company commander. Now,
Okay.
he can't be there all of the time, so he elects or selects from the recruits what they call a recruit chief, okay?
Okay.
Recruit CPO, he's referred to as. Then they select another guy, his assistant. Now, I was the assistant to the recruit chief petty officer.
Okay.
So when the commander is, company commander or the chief is not there, he's in charge and then I'm behind him. Well, one day, I don't know what happened, we were all standing in ranks and he called this other black guy, this N-word, okay? And the black guy was so mad he's biting his lip, but he's just standing there, you know? It irritated me. Well, when the company commander came back, I wanted to talk to him. I went and talked to him. I said to the chief, he had called, this name was Fitch, had called this guy a racial name. And I expected him to say, okay, he's going to deal with the problem. What he said to me was, well, you've been called that, haven't you? And I said to him, yes, I have, but I've always dealt with it. You know, someone called me that, I dealt with the problem. But it just shows you, I went to him hoping that he's in charge. He's going to deal with the problem. Instead, he slaps He's welcomed me to the world. It's kind of like a baby when he's born. They slap him on the behind, he start crying. Well, that's where I was. I went in there, you know, I'm in boot camp, new to the Navy, and I'm saying, hey, we've got this problem. He slaps me, throws me back out there. No action taken. So
it's amazing. Currently, we have the two most powerful men in the country, in the world.
Yeah.
The Pope is traveling in the United States for the first time, and we have President Barack Obama, President of the United States, the two most powerful. And here they are preaching, you know, the equality among everyone. We got the Constitution, we got, and they preach about peace and harmony in the world. Why do you think we having so much difficulty in the world, you know? And the country was built on the backs of Africans, the strongest, you know, people that were selected, you know, of the slave group. But I can't figure out, I take a look at the people that I meet every day and say, I wonder why, you know, because we may have come over here on different ships.
Yeah.
But we're in the same boat together now.
In the same boat.
But the people in the South, Virginia, and some of the other places, they can't understand that.
I can't understand it. I can't understand it. And, you know, acceptance is the key.
Okay.
They don't accept that you're equal.
Okay.
Or that they can't accept the fact that you want to be equal. Because it's a challenge to them, jobs.
Okay.
You know, when I worked at Procter & Gamble, I learned in the corporate world how the system worked. And it's if you have equal rights, then it affects a kid of a different race, because you may wind up with that job.
Okay.
And someone else is not going to get the job. There were so many family folks working at this job site that I was at, and I know why, because the pay was nice. Okay. They were getting a good check, and so there were some things going on that I knew that were not right, and it still goes on today.
Well, let's talk about some. You tell me about why you're in Florida. You experienced some very successful black. Tell us about, you know, Irvin Matthews, for example, that you met.
Irvin J. Matthews, he's a friend of mine.
Okay.
Irvin Matthews, he and I worked at Procter & Gamble.
Oh, that's what
another
okay.
unsuccess story about Procter. He came there with the promise of being promoted to a higher level. I was a manager. He was a group manager.
Okay.
So at one point, he was my boss. But after some period of time, they didn't want to give him his promotion that they promised him when he came.
Okay.
So in one of our weekly meetings, we met once a week to update him on the status of what was going on in the department, various departments. And he said to me after the meeting, one-on-one, he says, I'm going to quit the company. And I says, oh, yeah. He confided in me that he was going to quit the company. What are you going to do, Irv? He was going to work for Frito-Lay. He had been given a job offer for Frito-Lay. Okay, so he quit, went to work for Frito-Lay. Here's a good story. He was training in Dallas. And so one time I had a business run down to Dallas, and he and I met, and we had dinner, you know, and we talked about what was going on.
Yeah.
They were going to give him a plant, put him in charge of a plant in Jackson, Mississippi. Okay? He was going to be the plant manager. He bought a home there, and he was so proud. He went there to the plant, visiting, you know, and they were having a meeting, and after the meeting, some of the managers are talking about going out to play golf. He's a golfer.
Okay.
And he said, fine. He says, I love the golf. They say, you can't go. They don't accept blacks at this golf course.
Mm-hmm.
When he went back to Dallas, he told them, I don't want the plant. They assigned him to Orlando, Florida, and that's how he got to Florida. But he went to Orlando, and he had a huge plant there in Florida. I went down to see him, visit him on a couple of occasions, and one day he called me and he says, you know, this is the first time I'm making the money that I want to make. He said, but I'm going to quit. What? Yes, I'm going to quit. What are you going to do, Irv? I'm going to get a car dealership. He says, I was playing golf and I was talking to this guy, and he said he liked my presentation, and he recommended me, and he wound up, to make a long story short, with a Ford dealership.
Okay.
Paid it off in 3 years. He got a second one and a third one. The third one he sold was the Mercury dealership. He sold it on our 50th anniversary when we would, we went down and he was in the process of selling it then, but he owns 2 of them now. But this guy has become very successful down there. He just bought a home a year ago, another home, for $5.2 million. It's 23,000 square feet, 22,800 square feet. And man, we were down there and
22,800 square feet.
22,800 square feet. Has everything that you can imagine. It has several guest houses and several guest suites within the building and several out guest houses. And has 7 rooms of its own and 14 baths. The person who owned this house, they said they estimate that he must have built it for $30 million. Everything in there is granite, or, he had a granite mine in Italy. The driveway is about 300 feet long, and it's that's what's on the driveway. You can take a picture of it. I took a picture of it when I was there. And I said, everything, pillars in the home must be 30 feet high. Wow. Marble and granite.
So in spite of challenges, that he succeeded in life.
In life.
So there must be something special about blacks, right?
Yes, he has the talent. But he was that's a perfect example of being held back. He was being held back. They wouldn't promote him even though they promised him a promotion. But the guy now he's doing okay. He showed me a Bentley. I didn't get in it. I wish I should have taken it for a drive.
Right. There's something special about you too, because in spite of challenges and early life, you succeed to be in the top 1% of Master Chiefs that are Afro-American in the Navy.
In the Navy, yes.
The whole Navy.
Yeah, the whole Navy. And man, I hit the books though.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I hit the books, and it happened. On my first enlistment, I was promoted to E6. I was E6 for 2 weeks. And I got out, could not find a job once I was out. And because in the Navy, you're away from home.
Okay.
You have to go a lot. And so because of that, while I was out, I said to the wife, I can't find a job, and I need to support my family. I says, I'd like to go back in service, but if you are not okay with that, then I'm not going back, because you're the one stuck with the kids and having to make decisions while I'm gone. She said, it's your career. And there I went. I went back, stationed in Washington. We were transporting prisoners until my orders came at the Pentagon. I went over Pentagon, talked, and got me a good set of orders. Matter of fact, backpedaling a bit, while I was there and running these from prisoners back and forth, I had the opportunity to deal with a spy there. One of the guys that we were trying he had given up some submarine secrets to some guys over in Scotland. And, I just, for some reason, because I was a submariner, I just had a problem with him, and he kept saying to me, he would say, "Can I take a shower? Can I do whatever?" No, you may not. Behind the bars, you know, because they would, I guess they were trying to break him down to get information from him. They wouldn't let him, they'd fall asleep and they'd come get him and interrogate. But anyway, I had that opportunity, and someone mentioned Brazier, Master Chief Diver.
Yes, that's a movie.
Yeah, and that's in Washington, D.C. is where the school was right there.
Okay.
Yeah, and we were stationed on the base there where the president would fly. He would come into there, you know. And in 1963, when they had the March on Washington, 64, I was stationed, 63, I was there. And they had all of the guys stationed over on the base ready to come over in town and deal with all this rioting and all this stuff that they expected that didn't happen. I was so happy.
Boy. Well, I told the our listening audience from the beginning that this would be a signature program. But tell us about, you mentioned about Little Rock, Arkansas. I think you mentioned there's Little Rock 9. Some of the listeners, they may not be aware of that. Tell us a little bit of story there.
Well, and because of the segregated schools, we were not allowed to go to white schools, to go to the same schools. But in 1957, the military escorted 9 kids on September 25th, matter of fact.
Okay.
That was the first time that had happened.
They had to escort them.
Oh, yeah, the military had to, because people name calling them. In the same way was when Wallace was doing his thing, you know, that's some of the stuff that we as blacks had to go through.
Governor Wallace was very unique at that time. He stood in the doorway.
Yes.
At the University of Alabama, I believe it was, right?
Yes.
To keep,
exactly.
I think her name is Bates. Bates was from entering to the school. And I think Holder, our former Attorney General, I think he married her sister.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Didn't know that.
He mentioned that at one of the challenging experiences that he had while he was Attorney General. So we all, I guess, I'm experiencing some in North Chicago right now. You know, I have a empty building there because of the contract was not renewed. We were graduating students that had been suspended and dropouts and so forth, so they could be useful, get a high school diploma and vocational programs. Oh, really good. But I guess we were too successful, and somebody didn't want that to keep happening, you know. So we all have, I wonder, we're up south now, but we were down south then, and things are still happening, you know.
The system is still in place.
What about Great Lakes Naval Base? You know, we had the Navy was the last service to integrate, and that was because, I guess, Harris Truman, I guess, in 1948, right?
Yeah, 48.
And so why was the Navy the last ones? Were they more discriminatory than the rest of the services?
I don't know. I guess they just want to keep it that way. Well, they had blacks in the Navy.
Okay.
But they were separate, and the blacks that were in the Navy were all cooks and stewards. They all served the officers, you know, and you had to, and some guys were in supply. But, you know, the system was still in place then, but, you know, I was, I guess, lucky or academically sound enough to pass some of the tests, and I went into engineering. And that was a great deal. But I was told, even as a Master Chief, I remember we had a program where I was the branch head for the school, and we had a program that if a person came from sea, came to school here, wasn't making it academically, you know, he was flunking the test. So after the third time, we had what we call a drop board. And an officer, myself, and another person would sit and listen to this person, find out what his problems were.
Okay.
And I recommended that we send this particular guy back to Fleet because all he was doing was going over in town and partying, you know,
Okay.
and he wasn't cutting it. And I guess the officer didn't want that to happen, but the bottom line is we did send him back to the Fleet.
Okay.
After the meeting, though, the officer got on my case. I'm Master Chief. I'm E9.
Okay.
He says, you know, Woods, he says, if they were not giving people breaks, or if they did not waive some things, you wouldn't be where you are. You would not be here at this school. I says to him, sir, have you looked at my record? Academically, I qualify for everything that I have done and I have gotten. But he still felt that way. And talking to me, and I was not an E1 or something. Yeah, I was an E9. You know, and they still feel that way, I guess.
I wonder, have they checked the records and found out how many white men and women accelerated into high-ranking position, broke the glass ceiling because of affirmative action? It wasn't just for minorities, you know.
That's true. It was
women wouldn't be where they are now, and a lot of men wouldn't be where. Matter of fact, Supreme Court Judge Clarence Thomas was went under the affirmative action program.
Yes, you know? He's one that benefited from it.
So I don't know. We try to find out what's the justification, but we just. Tessa, you mentioned about in your career, you know about Dory Miller. Now, I say Dory Miller because his real name was, the mother had all girls, you know, the girls, and so she named him, I guess, some way, Doris Miller. His name was Doris. Doris Miller. Yeah. And he changed it to Dory, Dory Miller.
Yes.
But tell us about Dory Miller. Speak of qualifications and background and so forth.
Dory Miller, you know, what I didn't know about Dory Miller, I didn't know that he was a boxer.
Oh.
He was a boxer.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, and he played football. And, but he was a steward. You know, that was his job. You know, he was not trained, he was not a trained gunner.
Okay.
But when he was needed, he did the job, you know. He shot down several airplanes.
But how did he come from the bottom of the ship, and he must have trained on a gun somewhere?
No, they said he had no
background at all.
No training, no.
And shot down several Japanese planes.
Yes, he did. Medal of Honor winner.
Wow.
Yes, sir. That is great, isn't it?
That is something else. So I understand that at the Great Lakes Naval Base, you don't hear too much about it, but there are barracks. They're out there named in his honor.
Yes.
Dory Miller Barracks, and a plaque about C. Hyde. There's a little plaque out there on the main street there. But you know, it's interesting since we mentioned this. You mentioned about the Little Rock Nine, about the 9 students. Several years ago, there was a honor given. I think there was a statue that was built in honor of the Little Rock Nine, but it was on a side street. You know, it was not on the main street. And I talked with the NAACP president by phone. We talked by phone, and he stated he was even invited to the celebration.
Oh, wow. That's terrible.
So it's really, you know, I wonder at one time we're going to have, God is going to get displeased with what's happening in this country. And hopefully we don't have a Sodom and Gomorrah. that guy gets so displeased with what's happening here. But I think with all the churches and the efforts that have been made by the Pope and the President, like I mentioned before, we got all opportunities
here.
We do. And once the world comes to an end, there'll be no second chance.
That's true.
But when the book of life is open, you know, and that all your life and all your things that you've done in this world is going to be
documented.
Documented and face.
And
come
you
back
won't have to face.
And you won't go back and say, well, give me a second chance.
It's true. They say you only get one time through.
One time.
And this is not the drill. This is the real deal.
And you mentioned about the Navy and integration. That were the first officers. They called them the Golden 13.
Golden 13.
There's a processing center that all recruits come through, men and women, on the Highway 137. You know.
Okay. Yeah. Boot
they named
camp,
it after in honor of them. What happened is that the 13. There's no blacks officers in the Navy. The 13 officers took the test.
Yes.
And they made the highest scores. They made the Navy. Well, the administration of the Navy couldn't believe we're going to retest them. They retested them and they got higher scores than that.
That didn't work.
So this is amazing. It's just amazing.
It is.
I have to go back to my. I was the first African American to graduate from East St. Louis Senior High School in Illinois, and my forte was typing. And I took a typing test. The instructor gave us only black in the class, well, naturally, a senior class. And she had all 50 words a minute, raise your hand if you made over 60, over 70, 80, and 90. I was the last hand, the highest right? But she couldn't believe it. She came and she said, well, I gave a 60-minute test before, and before that, here it is. And looking at my paper, and here's your essay. So I guess you made it, but didn't believe it, that I was, you know. I don't know. What is your ultimate goal? You mentioned that during your retirement years, you chose North Chicago to retire.
Yes.
And we have so many military people that retire in the Great Lakes area.
Sure.
And it's not necessarily just North Chicago, but the Great Lakes area, Chicago area, sure. I guess because of the employment situation, right, was great at that time. Used to be great at that time, but maybe not so much now. But this is the reason why. Now, I was counseling for 2 years. It's a program they call Project Transition.
Yes.
You remember that one?
Yeah.
And we were counseling military people, mainly those 6 months prior to separation, to go out with the companies and then be trained. These are the ones that had no skills,
yes,
but go out and to have preparation. And that program was cut pretty soon. They said, why should we train sailors, I guess, for outside? But that's the program. But we found that everyone's eligible. Now, there's no discrimination there. And the military, Navy found out that more senior people, 6 months prior to separation, was taking advantage of it more than the lower level people were without any skill, right? So that program was dropped.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether Procter & Gamble took advantage of that or not, but a lot of companies took advantage of military people coming out. But a lot of them stayed in the area. But was that one of the reasons why you stayed in the North Chicago?
No. Well, I went through Project Transition not for training. They had a program where you could get out 3 months early.
Okay.
You know, so I got out 3 months early, and even though I was out 3 months early, I went to work for Procter & Gamble 4 days, I think, after I was out.
Oh,
so I was in the Navy and at Procter & Gamble. But I stayed in the area because my kids were getting out of school and working, had just started, you know, jobs. And, and my wife liked the area, and you know how that goes.
Yeah,
the wife stuck me here.
Okay.
I blame her.
Okay. Well, what's your ultimate goal?
Sit down. Sit down, yes. Well, we travel. I say that jokingly.
Okay.
The wife and I, we do lots of traveling. Like I said, we just got back from Florida. Last year we went to New Orleans and Florida again. Well, New Orleans and Vegas. And we just travel. We bowl. I love fishing. haven't had the opportunity to do a lot of that, but I love to do it. My friend, my fishing buddy, he passed away, and so it kind of put the hiatus on my fishing for a period of time. But that's what we do. The wife and I, we just travel.
Okay, I'd like to touch on, revisit one thing you mentioned about, this is the September 25th is the 1957. It's the 25th anniversary of the Little Rock Nine, right?
No, it's not the 25th. It's the 58th, isn't it? 57th?
Oh, my goodness.
58th.
Oh, my goodness, 58th?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, that's 1957.
Yeah.
Right, that happened.
It's the 58th.
They went to Central High School. But you mentioned that you were on a submarine called the USS 402 Razorback.
I was on the Razorback, yes. Out of the Razorback is it was an old diesel submarine, and it's the first one I went on. I was on it for 3 months. I served on that, and I didn't qualify on that. I was waiting on the Segundo, but the Razorback now is a museum in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Wow.
Yes, it's a museum there. I haven't seen it there. I keep being told that it's there, and everybody that's going down that way, I say, hey, go there. I served on that submarine. Yeah, the old stink pot, the old Razorback.
Of course, the submarine was your home for, gee whiz, how many years?
19 years.
19 years.
19 years. Now, something about those, I joke, and we say a lot about the old submarines. The nuclear units, they're a piece of candy, but those old submarines, man, they were rough. They could, you could stay down if you snorkel completely submerged. You can only be down for like 16 hours.
Okay.
And then after that, you had to stick the pipe up. You could snorkel full. You're still underwater, but you stick the pipe up, bring in fresh air.
There's not too many losses on the submarines, right? And
we've lost two in the recent years. We've lost, and the last one that we lost was down in Norfolk. We lost the Thresher and the Scorpion and the Thresher. The Scorpion, I knew a lot of guys on there. Some guys I came off. I said I was served on aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
A couple of the guys that came off carrier with me went on the Scorpion, and one of the officers came off my submarine. And funny thing, when the Thresher went down, I had 2 weeks left a 2-week patrol left. Is that?
No,
I had a 2-week patrol left, and man, was I, for some reason I was so nervous. Because I've got 2 weeks, don't do it to me now,
Right.
Yeah, I saw some pictures of that on the bottom. I said, wow.
Well, I can't end the program without you tell us a little bit about, you've been talking about your wife and your children, the importance of family to you in your life.
Importance of family to me, I say my wife, we've been married 57 years.
Okay.
I've known her since she was 5 or 6 years old. There are two important things in my life. My Navy, I was so impressed, so happy to be part of that, and my wife, and my family, my kids. Love my kids. That's it. That's it for me.
Well, would you recommend young men and women to enter the Navy?
Certainly. I think I think they should restore the draft.
Okay.
It would give every young man a foundation. Instead of graduating and hanging out on the corner, he would start off with some structure in his or her life.
Right.
For sure.
Fantastic. Well, Brother Woods, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
Literally taking time for your
me.
busy schedule to talk about your career.
Thank you.
And this was a signature program.
Thank you very much.
We don't get these kind of programs very often. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with John H. Woods, Master Chief petty officer, SS, is a
Submarine qualified.
submarine qualified, yeah. He's a retired U.S. Navy veteran, now living in the city of North Chicago, Illinois. And he became, in a select group, a 1% of all petty officers in the Navy, U.S. Navy.
Top
Congratulations.
1%.
Top 1%. This has been Community Forum. My name is Dr. Wardell Brooks Sr., your host.